Okay, we're live.
All right, well, we can call this meeting of the Salem Airport Advisory Committee to order. Irma, if you wouldn't mind running through the roll call.
Okay. Let's see. John Foley,
Present.
Colonel Nathan Edgecombe is absent. Douglas Bernizer,
Yes, here.
Kat Pence is absent. Christopher Burkholder,
Present.
present. Mike Morrow, he's absent. And Arnold Verstoof.
Present.
Thank you.
All right. Well, now that we've gotten through that, I think the first thing on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Did everybody get a chance to see that and review it? Are there any additions needed? And if there's not, could someone please move to approve the agenda as distributed?
I so move.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote to vote in favor if you want to approve the agenda as distributed. And I'll start off with Doug Brenizer.
Aye.
Christopher Burkholder?
Approved.
Is that a yes? Sorry.
Yes.
Yes, all right. Arnoud Vostoev?
Aye.
And then John Foley. I also approve. I think that's everybody, right? Perfect. All right, so then if that's done, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. And this time we got two sets of minutes, one from the November 9th meeting and then the last meeting on January 18th. And has everyone received and had a chance to review those minutes?
Yes.
All right. Are there any corrections needed? I'll take that as a no. So if someone could please move to approve the minutes as distributed.
I move.
Thank you, Arnold. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. So we'll do the roll call vote again. Start with Doug Brenizer,
Yes.
Christopher Burkholder,
Aye.
Arnoud Verstoev,
Aye.
and John Foley votes yes. So with that, we've approved the minutes. The next item on the agenda is public comment. Because this is a virtual meeting, any written comments from the public, we solicited prior to the meeting, and I don't believe we've received any. So if there's nothing else there, we can move on to our reports. And I guess, Rob, do you have a Tower Chief report?
Yes, good evening. So for January, February, we did 5,451 operations. That's about 1,000 down from this time last year, largely due to the weather we had. It was pretty wet and snowy at times. So our busiest day, though, was 233 operations, even for the weather. So when we get those slow days, they seem to come out and fly as soon as they get some sunshine. So we did have a fairly big day at 233 operations. We've had the mandatory reporting. We've had a trend the last 2 months of laser light illuminations. So we had 2 in January, 1 in February. 2 of them were at the departure end of runway 34 northbound, just about 2 to 3 miles north, and the proximity of probably Lancaster area. The third one was in February, and the pilot was actually hit with a laser on takeoff, just got about airborne, probably about 800 feet. And it looks like it was on the 16th and McGillcrest area. So, and he's actually a law enforcement officer, and he was able to call his dispatch. They didn't find anybody, but anyways, they did roll some patrol vehicles trying to look for that. So I don't know, that's all the paperwork's in, so everybody's aware of that, needs to know, but there is a trend. It doesn't look like the same folks are doing it, maybe the first 2, but definitely not the third one, it appears. So we're kind of keeping our eye on that one. Yesterday we had a flight check. So they went out and checked all of our pilot control lighting, and they're working satisfactorily. Runways 31 ILS, RNAV 31, RNAV 13, the back chorus was checked and were validated and reported all in good condition. So as of yesterday. looks like on the 14th, John and I were part of a new tower site survey. So we had some locations we looked at. We pinpointed it down to one location on the east side between the military department and Garmin. So was able to use a kind of a virtual reality type goggles to kind of position the tower, the way it would look from that east side. So that was kind of a 4 or 5 hour deal. We kind of excluded, we basically pinned it down to 1 out of 2 that we kind of decided that's where we wanted to be as far as over in that area. Does anybody have any questions about that, by the way?
The only question I had is what is that? What impacts are that as far as space and like any, I mean, I wonder what if there's growth potential impacts to at least our facility or the National Guard facility with the tower going there.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly takes up a chunk of developable property over there. They're gonna, part of the reason they were attracted to that site, besides its proximity to midfield, is that it's got enough acreage. They wanted 2 to 3 acres, so I shrunk them down as far as I could, but it will limit, of course, the amount of development we can have there, but only by about roughly 20%. They're gonna be right in would be the northwest corner, so closer to the guard base. Up against their shade port, not up against it on our side of the fence, but up against our perimeter road. So we kind of wedge them in the corner. So it'll still leave 8+ acres of development on the Garmin side. That was one of the reasons I kind of nudged them towards the Guard. The Guard doesn't have any expansion plans in their master plan to go southbound. So that's where they landed. So presumably that will free up some space on this side for us for future development, whether that be parking or some other when the old tower comes down, but that's years away. Yep.
Yeah, I think that as we tried to keep it close proximity where we're at now, there just wasn't enough space to build new. And the requirement was at least an acre. We're just shy of an acre anyways. And that doesn't even include the security fence around there and the easements and things of that nature. So to keep it midfield, we were pretty, our hands were pretty tight as far as what we could do. I think there was 2 on the west side, but neither one of them was ideal. Basically, the engineers shot them down. So, so really, we're just that's kind of where we ended up on the other side. It's a little bit of a disadvantage for us because we are looking to the sunset at our runways or movement areas, but there's some things in place that's going to minimize that challenge for us. So. And so, yeah, the report's going to be done by, I think, August, John, is that correct? So there's a lot of moving parts that goes into it, and that's not even guaranteed it will be built, if you will. So, but I think they're looking to build 30 towers by 2030, and we'll see if we make the cut on that down the road here. So.
Okay, so it's still a question whether or not that will actually be built.
It is. Well, we're on the list. We're in the bipartisan infrastructure laws what's funding these towers, but of course they still have to go through the environmental analysis and the design and the cost. And at some point things can change in Congress and money suddenly doesn't appear. But so far, what they've indicated to me is that everything we've provided to them and the cooperation with both Rob and myself and our staff with the FAA has really helped them along. So I feel like we're towards the front of the line, but certainly there's never any guarantee.
Okay. Well, you'll be able to see the whole all the runways now, right, and all the taxiways. Yeah,
it's actually a better look for us on that side. So we don't have anything impeding us. So that is the plus with that being said. But yeah, we'll see. I think it's ways out yet before we know anything. But
yeah, they estimated the earliest they thought would be 2025 or 2026. So we're still a ways away. I did send them several of the environmental documents. We did analyze that site. We did all the field studies and archaeological a couple of years back just to make it development ready. We had some grant funding from Business Oregon to allow us to develop some more shovel ready sites. And so I forwarded all of that to their consultant so they could get a head start on some of that as well. So we're kind of ahead of the game a little bit.
Any other questions on that topic? And did you have more, Rob?
No, that's, just let you know that we did pick a location, and kind of finalized it out of 7, I believe, total. And And so we're moving on from there. As far as our part right now is, done and was heard from the FAA down the road to see if anything transpires from it. So on the 20th April, we're going to do our annual runway safety action team meeting. I'm sure some of you were on the invitation list. If you weren't, please reach out to John or myself. We'll get you on that list. But it'll be a virtual meeting, and it's basically just an annual. We talk about the protocols and safety around our movement areas. So it's over the years, it's gradually gotten bigger. So I know I've gotten a lot of interest, probably more so this year than I ever have. So, but being virtual on the Microsoft, we're able to, the Teams meetings, we're able to actually invite more people instead of having it together in one room. So if anybody's interested in that and you haven't got an invitation, let us know and we'll get you on that. It usually takes about an hour. I think we're doing it at 10 a.m. on the 20th April. So you can log in and just kind of see the process of that piece. And we talk about trends within the airspace system, little trends at our field here, and what we can do as far as pilots and vehicles being out near the movement areas and just keeping the idea of safety in mind there. So then staffing, we're fully staffed as we speak right now, just recently. So that's been nice. Although I have one controller retiring on the 7th of April. I have filled that position and that individual will start training on April 24th. So going into the summer, I'm looking pretty happy about having full staffing throughout the summer and maybe longer. So
That's great.
yeah, it is really. It's been about 3 years since we've been in that position. So it's nice.
How many controllers is full staffing?
Yeah, it's proprietary, so I can't actually divulge that, but
Okay.
information's out there. But just because we are a contract and we're going into the new contract again, we've been without a contract for a couple of years just because of the past events, and we've been kind of on emergency contracts, but everything's getting rolling again. So the bids will be coming back out again, and so that's a priority thing. So
Okay.
yeah. Any other questions for me?
Trying to think, I did have one question, and it's kind of you talking about the runways safety.
Mhm.
Do you in the tower, do you guys, what kind of surveillance do you guys have? Is it all visual, or do you get ADS-B
Yeah, it's a straight
target?
VFR tower. There is no radar feed of any nature. In fact, a lot of the folks with this new ADS-B have a little bit more electronic, signature on things than we do. So we are a strict visual tower. So there's no aids or feeds or radar of any of that nature. So it's just basic air traffic control and a lot of questions and, and updating what we see and what we know and what we ask. And so.
Okay.
Interesting.
I was at a conference last week or the week before, I can't remember, Oregon Airport Management Conference, and I was talking to the airport manager in Bend, and they're in line for a new tower. They have 3 times the amount of operations that we have in Bend, and they are just now getting an air traffic control tower. I was amazed to hear that. They have roughly 140,000 operations a year of towers.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah, probably is some interesting days over there. Yeah.
Yeah, we're grateful to have you guys and gals up there, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And it's good to have you back at the meeting since you've got staffing now.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Rob? All right, if not, I think John's airport manager report was sent out with the minutes. I don't know if you wanted to speak to that at all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any additions except just to say that Mark Bechtel and I and a couple others did interview for security manager position on Monday afternoon. We had 2 qualified candidates, highly qualified. One was more highly qualified than the other. HR is preparing an offer letter to that individual this week. Hopefully he'll accept. He was actually ready to start as early as the first week or 2 of April, I believe. Was that right, Mark? Maybe April 7th or so. When the city starts, you can only onboard every other Monday at the beginning of a pay period. So I think April 10th maybe was the first onboarding opportunity. So that's good. That's pretty quick. So that'll really help me out here with trying to shepherd through the rest of the security plan and plugging in all the equipment, the fingerprinting and working on badges and all the things that are still yet to be done. So anxious to get that one filled. We had a failed recruitment on the badging and credentialing coordinator position. That's a highly specialized sort of technical field or skill set, I should say. We had probably 2 or 3 folks that withdrew their names, primarily because the pay to cost of living scale moving from other parts of the country to Oregon were not kind of not in line with what they wanted to. They were willing to uproot their families and move them to Oregon. So, when you got folks in South Dakota and Indiana and places like that, it's tough to get them to move to Oregon unless you're paying quite a bit of money. So we'll probably repost that one. Potentially, I mean, if we get lucky, we'll find somebody. Otherwise, we'll figure out a way to muddle through it and then have to train somebody to do that along the way. So I'm not sure how that one's going to shake out yet, but and we have another airport operations security maintenance person that's been hired. He'll start on May 8th. And then we'll have one additional vacancy. I have a couple of people already that are interested in that. It turns out through all these interviews, I'm finding out that there are a lot of people getting out of the military. We have a lot of Air Force and Army veterans that are leaving service and looking for aviation jobs. And so that's actually been really good. So I don't think I'll have a problem filling those positions. Other than that, I think I covered just about everything in my report. I know it's kind of lengthy, but there's a lot going on. So, but I'm always happy to take questions or updates or clarifications because it does get pretty wordy.
I guess I had a question. Are there any other announcements related to the commercial air service? Anything you know or can share about launch customers, routes, or anything like that, or just any notable thing that's happened? It seems like it's moving very quickly.
Nothing I can share. It's all still the larger project is still in process. We're negotiating with the airline now over their actual airline operating agreement, and a lot of that has to do with rates and fees that differ from what our published rates and fees are. So that will likely take a council action either sometime late March. I think the 27th would be the soonest we could get there, or April 10th. And it would be effective presumably around May 1st, even though they're not likely to start operations that soon. I guess a question I haven't asked yet, then now that I'm sitting here in front of the Airport Advisory Commission, is typically when there's going to be a council action, we'll have Airport Advisory Commission meeting to discuss that. I don't know, Mark, how that would work if we end up in an executive session with some of the proprietary information, if we could even bring it to this group, or how that works. Have any thoughts?
As of this afternoon, it looks like we're going to go into executive session on Monday, March 27th,
Okay.
and then go to the council floor for action on Monday, April 10th.
Okay, so the executive session one night and then meeting the next night.
Yeah, the difficulty with doing both the same night is one little change, and then you've got to go back and change your staff report and the agreement and all that. And how does that happen in the 15 minutes between meetings? And so
Right.
I've been here 28 years. I've seen it happen, but the city attorney is usually pulling his hair out in the process. So yeah, it probably as far as I would suggest, if the Airport Advisory Commission wants to respond to it, wait till the public record comes out for the April 10th meeting, and make any comments respective to it on the 10th.
Okay, so we would have to hold a special meeting, John, if we wanted to address that. But I guess I just don't know, Mark, what I would be able to offer to this group that wouldn't be. We'd have to just think through, I guess, how we would present it to the Airport Advisory Commission. I don't know if we just redact names or some information or whatever.
My understanding is that, we're not going to be able to reveal the name of the airline until either the airline wishes to do it,
Right,
on their own, or it would be as soon as the docket packet is released for the April 10th meeting. So that'd be like the Thursday before. And that's
Okay.
probably when the first person to read the staff reports will go, oh, it's this airline.
right. Right.
So,
Well,
yeah.
and in the past, the Airport Advisory Commission, is prior to us moving to Public Works, they have continued to express their support generally for commercial air service. And so I haven't brought every single item back to them. I don't know if this one would be something they'd want to address just because it involves rates and fees or not, but it's something we can talk about, and then we can talk to the chair, offline, decide if we need to bring it here. So there's some things happening in the near future, but circling back around to your question, Mr. Chairman, that is underway. Everything else is still underway. The terminal is actually under renovation now. Much of it has been taken apart. You can't walk very far in the terminal before you hit construction. And all the other bits and pieces with security plans and hiring and ground service equipment deliveries, all of it's just happening simultaneously. So we're moving very, very rapidly.
Any estimated completion date for those renovations?
We're still targeting our original schedule that we provided to council on January 9th, which is around mid to late May for completion of everything. That's our target date, which wouldn't necessarily line up for a launch date with the airline, because obviously there's got to be some time in between there for them to be able to advertise and sell tickets. And they don't want to announce service publicly and start selling tickets until they're confident that we have a date certain. And there's still a lot of things that could go sideways, either with, TSA approvals, TSA equipment delivery, et cetera. So they're hesitant to move too quickly in announcing. They've done that at other airports, only to turn around and have to, unannounced service. And that's not good for business. So my guess is, I think we're sort of estimating probably late June, early July as sort of a reasonable launch period, maybe launch window. Now we're getting into some space talk here, but that's kind of what we think is reasonable and practical.
Okay.
But at least by May, we're done with our part. And then if we're waiting on the federal government, that's not anything we can control.
Right.
Or if the airline just chooses to change their start date, that's up to them.
Okay.
Yep. So other than that, I don't have any other additions. But again, if there's any other questions or clarifications anybody needs.
Any other questions for John?
I just make a comment, having observed a couple of the meetings. The energy is wonderful, and everybody is doing, it looks like, all they can do to make this happen. So it's quite a change from maybe a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it's like the floodgates have opened.
Yeah. For those of you who may not be aware, Doug is part of the steering committee that was put together to sort of shepherd this entire project forward. And so about every other week or so, we have a committee meeting. And so Doug's been keeping tabs on that. So that's been really helpful, particularly if something were to happen to me and I can make it to the meeting. You've got somebody that can update you. So appreciate that. And I talked a little bit in my presentation about my report about the master plan. That's still moving forward. I know it feels quiet after we had our kickoff in December. It's mainly just because the consultants are doing the work. I've got the first two draft chapters right here on my desk, but the aviation forecast is one of the two sections of the master plan that the FAA actually has to approve and sign off on. And that part is sitting still for the moment because we're trying to figure out with the FAA how they want us to do forecasts, given the uncertainty of air service, number of operations, number of proposed enplanements, what their growth expectations are, and so on. So it's a little bit difficult to do that without having some certainty. And so we've got to contact FAA, even all the way up to the headquarters level, to get some guidance on how the forecasting should be done. So that might put us behind a couple of weeks or a month or so, but hopefully by the time that time comes, we'll have a little bit more clarity from the airline on launch dates and growth plans and things. So, but the other parts that can continue to be developed in the master plan will be, and at some point we will have our first planning advisory committee meeting and some public outreach and things. So that'll be later this spring. It looks like probably May instead of April, just given that we're in mid-March now. So those of you that are involved, I think there's at least two of you here that are part of the master plan committee. So there'll be maybe more coming here soon.
Okay.
We have to try and do it all, keep all the plates spinning.
Yeah. John, there was an old concern that keeps showing up at SOG about 1634 closure and when will people have a chance to get there?
Mhm.
And someone, I don't remember who, brought up that it bothered them. The consultant referred to the runways as 16 and 34. And it was kind of like, well, wait a minute. Nobody that knows anything about aviation refers to them as 16 and 34. So
Yeah.
that's the only comment I wanted to make as a result of SOG. We had kind of a, people are concerned about not getting their 2 cents in before it happens.
Oh, they'll have plenty of time. I mentioned I know I had to join you on phone, and I was only able to attend for about the first 10 or 15 minutes for another meeting, but there'll be plenty of opportunity over the next 18 months or so for folks to voice their opinions. As I mentioned prior, and it might be in my report, I can't remember, but we're developing a project website. There'll be feedback form on there. So when there's a link to that, I'll send that out to everybody. So we're going to have a lot of avenues for people to comment. It's a draft document right now, but we've created we've pulled some information out of the FAA handbook and guidebooks and things on how they fund runways and how they identify which runways they're going to fund and what's your primary and what's your secondary and your crosswind and all those technical definitions. So we have an information sheet that we're going to share with folks just so they understand that it's not consultants that are making that decision or an airport manager or a tower manager or anybody else. It's how the FAA chooses to fund infrastructure. And why 1634 is not eligible any longer. Now, again, it says in that document, and I made sure it was in there, that doesn't mean we have to close that runway. It just means that the FAA won't fund it. And so if the city wants to fund it and keep it alive, that's a business decision the city of Salem can make. So that information will be coming out. The website will be standing up here pretty soon if I can ever get time to go through our current website and have it transferred over to the public works side. And then get that information on there. But certainly through the public meetings, through the planning advisory committee meetings, through this group here, through city council meetings when we do presentations to them, there will be a lot of avenues for people to stand up and voice their opinion one way or the other.
Okay.
If you could help me share that, Doug, that's one of the reasons I'm glad that you and John and I think we have a third.
Mike Morrow, I believe, is on.
Mike as well. Thank you. Yep. I wanted to have all three of you here so that there's enough. There's somebody for everybody to talk to if they want an avenue to get information. So appreciate that from you guys. I'm obviously busy with a lot of other things. So 1634 discussions, if you can handle those, that'd be great.
Do what we can do.
Yeah, but I will say this too, and Arnaud and I had a discussion earlier today that a lot of folks struggle with finding avenues of information without contacting me, and my response to him is it's really the best way to get information is to contact me. Outside the fence of this airport, there's not a lot of resources for info. I don't go to other groups and provide a lot of updates and things. So on day-to-day business or as we move along in various projects, don't be shy about contacting me. We can set up meetings. I've got a meeting next week to meet with Arnaud, and I'm always happy to, I'm responsive to emails and can set aside time to visit with folks. So if anybody wants to, come and talk or have a group meeting or whatever, we can always do those things. People are getting nervous or there's too much quiet. Always happy to provide updates.
Well, and sometimes there is truckloads of information out there from other sources. So, whether we agree with it or not, it does hit the streets, and that seems to get more energy sometimes than what's actually going on.
Yeah, and I do get a lot of folks that either stop by. I had somebody stop by this morning and knock on my window. I'll get a lot of emails and things. My presumption always is that they take that answer and that they share that out there, but that may not be true either. They might just be answering it for themselves, and that information is not being shared. So in any ways that we can share them, whether it's through the user group or through the Airport Advisory Commission or any other avenues, then it's good for that information to be more widely disseminated. We've talked over the years about trying to put together a newsletter, like a quarterly newsletter with lots of information and updates. And, we just haven't had the staff time and the resources to really get after that and stay after that. But maybe that's something now that we'll have more staff and we're in a different department, maybe that's something we can talk about trying to do where folks get some, something to read or some information if they're not attending these meetings or other meetings. So things we can consider for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Any more, I guess, You mentioned the airport security plan. Any idea when we'll hear something more definitive about how that's going to impact? I know you touched on a few items that you thought were going to happen, but
Yeah. I don't have a good answer for you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's going to be as I get these chapters to the TSA and they comment back and they kind of give us, I won't call it a blanket approval, but we're sort of doing a submission approval process simultaneously because it's faster to do that way. As I get some clarity from them on what they're going to accept for, AOA security versus secured area security. I'll be able to share more. I hesitate to share too much publicly because the TSA could turn around and say, no, that's not going to be acceptable.
do you
And
anticipate?
then people got bad information, and that's what I don't want to do. So I'd rather it be a little bit later and inaccurate than sooner and have to try and correct. So probably in the next 30 to 60 days for sure.
Okay. Do you
At the risk-
anticipate that it'll be?
Oh,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
You're up, John. Go ahead.
I was just saying, do you anticipate that it'll be something of a rolling start? Not, all the
That's my
things that are
hope.
in place as prior to getting air
That's my
service
hope.
away,
Yeah.
or if we're going to be able to have a plan to reach milestones to get.
Yeah, in my informal discussions with TSA, they've made it sound like that's something that they will consider, and that they understand that this is something that's difficult to get done before, day one, before an airplane rolls in here. To have to background check and badge hundreds and hundreds of people and all of that. So I assume so, but again, what one person says is not the person that's signing the document either. When the airport security plan is signed and returned to me, that is the approval process. That is the go signal. And so as I'm writing it, I'm putting that rolling start kind of language in there, that at a future date, ... will happen. And those sorts of things. So they've indicated that they would be warm to some of that as long as we have and we can demonstrate some intermediate solutions until we get to those milestones. So those are yet to be determined, but I think that's going to be the case.
Thank you for humoring me, putting you on the spot about it.
No, it's okay. It's all right. This is good stuff.
Well, I just have, are there any updates on the company that's talking about moving into the north end of the field and the Vietnam museum idea?
Yes, on both. So Terry Duran sent me a note a couple of weeks ago just to let me know he was still alive and well, and they're still trying to find a home for the Super Sabre. Doesn't have it yet. It's not up here yet. I think they were waiting for nicer weather. But he doesn't have a location, and I don't know that he wants to put it outdoors. He certainly would rather have a hangar, but I don't think there's just not a lot of hangar space available in Salem, particularly of that size. So I don't know if he'll end up here, if he'll go to another airport, but he's still working on it. It sounds like he's secured the airplane. It's just a matter now of getting it moved and finding a home for it where they can do some work on it. Metal Innovations, I've been in touch with them recently, just because I needed access to their premises to do some fence work and clear some blackberries and things over there. But they're just planning their future. So they've got, it's a big move to move your entire business from Aurora down to Salem. They're going to add some business lines that they don't currently have, like avionics and paint and some other things. And so I've talked to their architect about a few things. I've talked to them about a couple of things. They're getting some of their employees sort of pre-trained for driver training and things like that. So it's sort of slowly, quietly happening behind the scenes, but not a lot of activity yet. And I know that they are working on the abandoned aircraft process with the FAA and with the courts to get rid of that hawker down there. So
Got it.
that's been a muddier, uglier mess than they wanted to deal with, but they bought the plane with the premises, so it's theirs now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I suggested they not do that, but they did. So yeah, so that'll melt away or go away one day, whichever happens first.
Thanks.
But it'll be nice when it's done. Yep, you're welcome. Yeah, and but to let you know, yeah, their lease is updated. We paid quite a bit of money to have a formal survey done so that we know exactly where their lease lines are versus the forestry department and some of their other neighbors, because that's all sort of nebulous in the various leases. And so we're getting some of that tied down too. Did talk to them about possibly storing some Horizon Q400s here temporarily while they prepare them for long-term storage, because Alaska Horizon's done with the Q400s now. They've flown their last flight. So we've come up with a plan on the south ramp with some metal plates and things to maybe nest a few Q400s down there. So that'd be kind of neat if that happens. But so there are conversations happening with them, but no actual activity yet.
Great.
That's it. Nothing else. There's nothing else going on.
All right. Any other questions for John? We can give him a break.
I'm good. I'm happy to provide updates. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Well, that'll conclude the airport manager report. Next item on the agenda is any action items, and we did not have anything actionable on this agenda. So I guess I'll go on to the next spot, which is items for commission discussion. Did anyone have anything they wanted to bring up with the group here while we're together? Short opportunity.
Covered everything I wanted to do, John. Thanks.
All right. Well, with that, if there's nothing else, I think we can adjourn the meeting.
Before Irma cuts us off, I'm curious. I'm just going to ask a personal question with Chris if he's out flying yet.
Oh, yeah.
Are you? You're up and flying now? Your training's done?
Yeah, I'm up and flying. I'm sitting reserve tomorrow.
All right.
I already did a couple Hawaii trips and then went from Hawaii then out to Minneapolis and head to de-ice and through a heavy snowstorm. So getting both sides of the gamut.
Fantastic. Glad to hear it.
Yeah, glad you're flying.
Yeah, it's good to be back in the air.
Great.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
have
Talk soon.
a good next couple of months, and we'll see you again in May, I believe.
We'll talk to you before then, I'm sure.
All right.
Thanks all. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks.